Welcome back to Christian Questions on News Talk 102.3 FM, WXLM. Our subject this morning, can Muslims and Christians get along? To be a part of our program, call 860-442-6102. That's 442-6102.
And Jonathan, during the break, we were talking, and Mahmoud had one other point he wanted to make on the question that Fred had about prophets.
Yes, the question that I would like to clarify the answer for it is about the prophets that we know. For example, Allah has mentioned in the Quran to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when he talked about the prophets, that we have talked to you, or we have told you about some prophets and others that we did not. So the one that we have been told clearly in the Quran about, that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came from basically the progeny of Ismail, peace be upon him. But that does not mean that we do not necessarily, that there is no other prophets that came from there. But those are the one that has been basically mentioned. And but Allah has sent so many prophets and messengers to other nations. But remember that the Quran is not an encyclopedia to mention this. It's actually lessons to be taken seriously by people, and there is always, when Allah says something about the Prophet or anything, or mention a story, there is something behind it for us to learn from it, and that was the purpose.
Okay, thank you for that. So there were other prophets then. It's just that we're not getting into all of the details on them, and there are some that are specifically mentioned, and those are the ones where we've been talking about specifically. Let's shift gears a little bit, gentlemen, and let's move forward here. Let's talk about a practical sense. Islam day to day and Christianity day to day. From a standpoint of Islam, as a Muslim, how do you treat your neighbor? What are the guidelines? What are you supposed to do with your neighbor? Be he a Muslim, a Christian, a Jew, an atheist? How do you treat him?
One thing is, before I say how do we treat him in theory and all these things, I would like probably to refer people to study the history, because history can speak for itself. And for the last 13 centuries, when Islam was basically in control, meaning that the religion of Islam, that people were applying the religion, we know how people, they got together as a Christian and Muslim, and as well as other people, as a matter of fact, not just the Christian and Muslim, but Muslim versus, call it non-Muslim, if you want to call it that way. And we know how they live together in harmony. There is always these people who are a troublemaker for one reason or another, who try to basically break the peace between people. But to answer those questions, we always refer to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, how he actually dealt with his neighbors. And I'll give you examples. One thing is, we know that a lady who was his neighbor, and as a matter of fact, she used to throw the dirt on his way in front of his house, bothering him and so on and so on. But this is one story. And what happened? Did he retaliate? He did not. As a matter of fact, one time he came and he found out that there was no dirt in front of his house. He was wondering what happened to this lady. Maybe she's sick or she died. And as a matter of fact, what he decided to do, he went to ask about her. What happened to her? It's not just because he wanna something, but he really serious. He wanna find out what happened to this lady. So basically, when this lady found out that this is how he actually dealt with her, then that's when she started thinking about Islam and so on and so on, and she changed her mind about Islam. But Islam also talks about a lot of things about the rights of the neighbor, whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim. And for example, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, mentioned when he said that Gabriel, angel Gabriel, keeps actually talking to him about the neighbor till the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he thought that he's going to give him part of his inheritance. And for the neighbors, to us as a Muslim, we see the neighbors regardless who's that person, that he is very important to you and could be more even useful than your own brother and blood. Because your neighbor is the one next to you. Suppose if something happened to you, who's the first one who's going to help you? Your neighbor. If you don't, always they ask about, if you want to ask about somebody, go to his neighbor and find out who's that person. And that talks for itself. But there is a lot of rights, not just the one that next to you. As a matter of fact, several neighbors far away from you that you have the rights. They have rights on you, and vice versa. And one of those rights that they have on you is to be nice to them, to help them and to make sure that they have the necessity and so on and so on. And beyond that, of course, the most blessed thing that you could have in life is really the guidance of your God. And if you believe that you are being guided and blessed by your God, I think you should also try to let other people to have the same guidance and the blessings that you have.
All right, so it sounds like you would be a good guy to have as a neighbor.
That's for sure.
That's a good thing.
I hope so.
Well, you know, and folks, I think this is a very important part of this conversation because we've spent a lot of time talking about the theology, if you will, behind Islam and Christianity, and there are some similarities and there's some tremendous differences. But here we're talking about the practical, okay, how do you express your conviction in your life every day? And for me, as a Christian, when I think of, you know, how do you treat your neighbor, I think of what Jesus said in Matthew 22, verses 35 to 40, and I want to read these. It says, "And one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. 'Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?' And Jesus said to him, 'You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and this is the greatest and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets.'" And I think this is a core value. This is a core value of Christianity.
It is.
I want to, you know, if I pass away tomorrow, I would hope that people would remember me as one who loved his neighbor, as one who would have gone out of his way, because that's what
to help one another.
Right, because
yes.
that's what we are given the example to do. For us, it is through Jesus Christ. And for our Muslim friends, it's through the words and teachings of Muhammad. And Jonathan, we have a call.
Welcome to Christian Questions. This is Jonathan and Rick. Who are we speaking with?
My name is Larry.
Hey, Larry.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. How are you doing today?
Doing
Great.
well.
And I want to say welcome to your guests, and I'm very happy that they're there having this dialogue with all of us, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I would like to just make two quick points.
Yes.
You know, I tuned in a little late, and it sounds like they were referring to Jesus Christ as a prophet.
Yes.
Can you be a prophet and also be a liar? Can you be both? Because Jesus Christ claimed his divinity. He said, before Moses was, I am. The Father and I are one. And this is written by people that lived with him, that ate with him. And then also on a moral issue that we have in our day, do your guests condemn the killing of innocent women and children by people that claim to be of their faith, that are killing people in Israel? Do they condemn that?
Okay, you asked some loaded questions there.
Well, I don't mean to be loaded. I'm seeking an answer to it.
Okay. Well, and let's we actually had somewhat addressed the first question, but let them give a repeat answer for you here, Larry. Just in dealing with the question of Jesus claiming his pre-human existence, because he did say before Moses was, I am. He was saying that I had existed before. I was with the Father. I came from the Father, and I go back to the Father. So, what is your sense on that?